Hard work, real talk, no shortcuts. I'm Joseph Cabrera. This is American Operator. All right, gents, we are here not in the Austin studio, but we are in the booming town of Crossville, Tennessee, right outside of Nashville, with Mark and Ian of Whisper Aero, the co-founders and the two folks that kind of hold the helm there for this great company. Gents, thanks for having us in your house here today.
We love having you.
Thanks for coming.
Making the trip. And we're a little bit more than on the outskirts of Nashville. We're an hour, 45 minutes.
100 miles.
Yeah, with today's traffic and cars. But we're going to change that.
I see that. Well, I know we're going to get into making that maybe closer to a 20-minute trip here at some point. But, guys, we're going to go cover quite a bit of stuff today. What y'all's company is working on, we were just catching up before we went live here. And it's not just kind of future of aviation and the way people get to places and quiet technology and all the things that come into propulsion. But y'all are really, I think, on the forefront of connecting people in a way that's never really been done before. So we'll get into all those things. But I think what would probably help set the stage is just part of this show is always really talking about the humans behind it all. And I've always just, when I first met y'all close to 2 years ago and then coming back here, which thanks for the invite back. Means at least we had good house manners when we were here the first time. So would love to just kind of get, Mark first, then Ian, just y'all's background. Like, what got you? No one enters this field without seemingly being passionate about it for so many years. So, Mark, we know you've done quite a bit, but go ahead and give us the version.
I'm definitely known for being pretty passionate about aviation.
Understatement.
Yeah, so opinionated and passionate. But it started very early for me. When I was 8 years old, I grew up in New Zealand and knew I wanted to work on vertical takeoff and landing aircraft, and I wanted to work for NASA, literally at that early age. And I would be jumping off sand dunes in raincoats to try to pretend and learn to fly. But so that was my dream. I was really focused on it. Managed to work, have the really great privilege of working at NASA in the powered lift aviation group at NASA Ames, and then at Langley for 32 years. Kind of saw it all. Where in those early days in the 1980s, learned from those who built and designed those aircraft in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, who were the pioneers of vertical takeoff and landing aircraft. And my mission was to make that become an everyday kind of capability that people could afford to use. And my whole life has been focused on achieving that. And fortunately, Ian and I are at the right place at the right time with the right technology where electric propulsion is just doing amazing things, not just on the car side, but now in aviation. And it's just, it's good fortune for both of us to been at the right place at NASA, Uber, and Northrop to be able to leverage all these new technologies.
Yeah, definitely right place, right time.
Yeah, and you, Ian?
Yeah, for me, slightly different story. When I was younger, I wanted to be an astronaut, but then I found out when I was 5 I had terrible vision. So
you need to be able to see to go into space.
Oh, to fly. I could still maybe fly today, but not astronaut level fly. So instead of flying the airplane or the space shuttle, I thought, okay, maybe I can actually build it. So that just took me down the road of engineering. Competed in high school robotics, went to Stanford, got a degree in aero-astro, and then from there knew I wanted to go design airplanes. Went to Northrop Grumman's advanced design team, worked there for a few years and designed some cool stuff, and then popped out and met Mark at Uber. One of the first few hires there. We grew the team to about 150 people. I was initially responsible for all of our aircraft partnerships. And so at Uber, we would go and vet and see how all of these different companies, the greats like Boeing and Bell, but also startups, Joby, and then even non-traditionals like Hyundai, Toyota, how they would all potentially come into this space and try and revolutionize the future of urban air mobility. So did that for a few years, helped incubate some new teams like Hyundai's aviation division. And then in 2019, moved over into the strategy side of things, became the head of strategy, built out a team that was focused on how do we actually go to market, and brought together all of these layers like noise, weather, airspace, economics, vehicles, in order to figure out how do we actually launch products on the Uber platform that would fly. And no surprise, the biggest thing that we realized was that noise is this big barrier to scale, and nobody had solved it. Not enough to actually unlock the skies for everyone. So that's where the opportunity for Whisper showed itself. We knew that you could be better in terms of efficiency, better in terms of noise, better in terms of community friendliness. And if you had this new, electric engine technology that could propel things through the sky more cleanly, quietly, and efficiently, well, it turns out you could also move the air on the ground more cleanly, quietly, and efficiently. And that is the makings for a really awesome business, a 21st century Pratt & Whitney plus a Dyson combined. So that's Whisper, and that's the opportunity we're here to go grab.
Before we dive into technology, and I know y'all are giving us the Cliff Notes version, but even in that short notes, man, you just think about so much horsepower crammed in those years of time that y'all spent in the space. What about each other's combo? Like, how did y'all obviously found each other there? It sounds like Uber Elevate, but what about that relationship made you eventually go, let's go do this thing together?
So this is an interesting story. Again, Ian was like one of the very first people that I hired at Uber Elevate, and he just showed himself immediately to be a dynamo of intelligence and hard work. And literally everything that we put him in charge of, he excelled at. But what really drove me to want to work with him for the rest of my career is I'd had this idea in the back of my mind for about a decade of how to do what Whisper is doing, how to be transformative in terms of making thrust really, really quiet. And so we had this big team, and I'd say, I've got this idea, and we could make thrust like radically quieter and be more efficient at the same time, and you could do it at any size propulsion class. Because usually, if you make propulsors smaller or engines smaller, they get less efficient and less reliable, all sorts of bad things. So I gave these clues. Like every month I give a different clue. And nobody could figure it out until I think it was like a year and a half in. Ian
September 2018.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. It was a year and a half in. Then Ian said, I think this is what your idea is. And I said, oh my gosh, I gave too many hints. I said, we're going to have to do this together, Ian. And again, he is the most hardworking person I've ever met. Keeps everything going, and with such a positive personality. But he figured out, what the magical new tech was. And from there, it was just like this. We had to do this together.
Yeah, I mean, the tech was part of it, but I think we also have a really great working dynamic. Trying to find a co-founder is really tough.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And you need someone who is similar enough where you can understand the product you're going to build, and similar enough that you can go and approach building the team in the right ways, but complementary in a way that you can fill each other's gaps. You can't always be working the same thing because you'll always butt heads. And so you need to be able to know, and I've had other founders describe this as like a decision-making fabric. You need another co-founder that can build that fabric and weave in together. I think we've got that.
Yeah. I'm much more big picture vision. Ian is in the details and just execution. I'm not good at execution, but Ian excels at that. So we are very, very complementary in terms of skill sets.
Yeah, it sounds like in addition to having complementary skill sets, one thing I've noticed about, which you're absolutely right, it's rare to see a team. There's teams out there, but the ones that work really well and seem just kind of like the chemistry is on. also seems to have like a mutual respect for each other's skills. Like I think that's something that oftentimes you can have these opposing skills, but if you don't really respect the other person's, it can just seem like, let's just do more of what I do best, as opposed to saying, no, I appreciate where you're coming from, and that definitely fills the gaps.
Yep. Well, I'm near the end of my career, 40 years in, and I want what I've learned and the connections I've made and the networking to continue beyond me. And very much from the beginning, I said to Ian, it's like I want you to have all the knowledge and all the networking, all the connections for yourself, so that you can just continue to do great things even beyond Whisper, or to grow Whisper into the next Pratt & Whitney.
Well, and it's not just me. I think it's like the entire team.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just Ian.
To be
Well,
super
in the
clear.
beginning, the promise was just to Ian that I would make sure that everything that I could share was given.
Yeah.
I really felt that very strongly. When you find someone like Ian who has this unlimited potential, it's just like, they're better than you, and you want to do everything to have them be successful.
I don't know if you can say that.
So.
Well, this is the mutual respect that's there. I can see it, and I think, I think we all probably reach a point, and I think it comes at various levels. But obviously, at the end of one, or towards the final approach, if you will, on someone's career, that you kind of want to know that this ball that we're on, has to continue forward and kind of mean something. So I can tell that, again, y'all's mutual respect for each other and y'all's give-a-hoot is high. You're not just trying to, let's go flip this thing and let's go start, I don't know.
No, we're on a
kimchi
mission.
taco company after this.
On a mission. Well, you have to pour so much of your soul to make it work. It's like, why, if you're going to do that, why do it for something so small? Like, really swing for the fences.
Yeah, I doubt many people understand how hard and consuming it is to do a startup like we've been doing. All the employees here know, but it's like you got to live through it to believe. Everybody's putting their heart and soul and sweat into this. So you got to be a believer, and you got to have passion, and you got to want to change the world for the better.
Yeah.
Passion's like the starting line.
Yeah.
That's the starting.
I imagine that's what y'all like. That culturally, like, that's got to be what y'all expect, right? Or like have to sniff for it, right? Otherwise, like, you could be a super talented engineer or whatever you might be, but
Well, we talked about this when you first came here,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like our whole recruiting process it's equally about the technical piece as it is about the culture. And you could be, like you were saying, you'd be someone who's really talented, who knows a whole lot, but if you don't know how to work with people, then there's no way that we can work together on these larger projects. It will inevitably take more people and collaboration and lots of different perspectives in order to get to the best winning product.
yeah.
Well, and this is something that Ian insisted on right from the beginning, was developing a really strong culture right up front. So as you walked in, you probably saw on our wall the different principles of culture that we've implemented. That was all Ian. Now, a lot of other employees have run with it as well and augmented it, but Ian was really insistent on that being the core of Whisper.
Yeah. Is one of them up? Am I remembering it right? Is ruthlessly prioritized?
Ruthlessly, yeah, that's
That's
one of the
so
13.
good, man. It
Yeah.
just like pierced my brain when I read that. I think it just helped it because it's such a thing that, especially in this world, you want to talk about shiny ball syndrome. There's 9,000 of them a day in this company, and to not know what you got to focus on, I can see where those two things have to. I think it can be seen as just like the window dressing, not core important to making this thing work.
Well, the rate of change of technology today is bewildering. It's just staggering, and it's going to keep accelerating. So, yeah, there's so many shiny balls. If you can't keep focus, then it's going to be really hard to be successful.
Yeah.
So.
Tell me, y'all. Okay, I am into what y'all do, but maybe for somebody who's just coming into it, like, how do you describe why the technology is so unique? Like, what y'all are working on? They probably might thinking, let me think about Larry in Idaho might go, it's just airplane stuff, man. Don't we already know how to fly? Like, I don't understand why are we doing this. Didn't the Wright brothers take care of us? What would y'all say in response to that?
You want to take the first pass?
So it's not just airplane stuff, because it is anything that any application where you need to move air and you care about it doing that efficiently and quietly. Whether it's for disturbing cows and you got to have big fans that are blowing on something, or just a leaf blower like we have it back in the back here. It's our technology goes to all these commercial, industrial, aviation, Department of Defense applications, because we have reinvented the ducted fan to be absolutely synergistic with electric motors and batteries, and to be, again, as efficient and as quiet as a way that you could ever move air. So that's my answer. What's yours?
What we're building, I mean, you said it. It's cleaner, quieter, more efficient thrust. And when you start to think about all the things that harness the power of air every single day, it becomes quite extensive, right? Leaf blowers, HVAC systems, cooling.
Delivery drones.
Which
is
delivery
part of
drones
the
one
future.
day, yeah.
And those are going to be flying everywhere. I mean, not in the ones and twos like today, but there's going to be millions. In the next 20 to 30 years, there will be millions of drones flying around. And if they're all as noisy as they are today, it's going to be a miserable future.
Yeah.
But again, I mentioned this before. One of our investors, early investors, was Robert Downey Jr. with his
Footprint Coalition.
Coalition. And he had this really cool thing that he said about our tech, which I totally believe in, and that is the future needs to be as considerate as it is compelling. So it's not acceptable that we make people's life more convenient with delivery drones, where you can order something from Walmart and get it, 5-10 minutes later, if it's annoying the whole rest of the community. You gotta make sure that what we're providing in this future for our kids is considerate, is compelling, is a better way for us all to connect, to move, and be productive.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you talk about the considerate part, that is kind of also like, you can't create a world trying to do a different thing if people aren't buying into that as well, right? Even if you only have early adopters into it and you don't get the rest of the folks to come along.
Well, there's layers to it too, because it's not just the person using the product or using the service, it's the people around them, it's their neighborhoods. So whether it's a delivery drone, you may be experiencing the benefit of receiving this good, but your neighbors may not appreciate a really noisy drone at 6 a.m. when they're trying to sleep on a Saturday.
Same for leaf blowers.
Same for leaf blowers.
Especially.
Yeah, we'll prove it with leaf blowers, and then that's the proof point for the drones and everything else that we go fly.
Why did y'all? I mean, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's such a, y'all are like kind of going after the foundational mission instead of just saying let's make Whisper Aero the leading and best company that builds these drones that are going to be moving around. Y'all are actually going way deeper than that and way more foundational, and saying, no, let's make sure the technology sounds like we want this to be a technology that's ubiquitous across all folks using every application of it, not just the one single use it might be.
Well, the mission is to deliver cleaner, quieter, more efficient thrust. And we acknowledge that, we harness the power of air in lots of these different products. So to do that and to approach and build a company that can tackle that mission, you have to have a foundation of this core tech. And you build that solidly, and then you use that as your base to then insert the technology into as many products as possible.
Yeah.
Well, and you have to have a practical business case where you're building revenues while you're building that big dream as well. So that's why for us, we've always thought of having our business model where, as you're establishing these long-term certified aviation solutions, aircraft, that takes 10 years to get to a certified aircraft. And it can't just be a leap of faith that, hey, in 10 years, we're going to make money. For us, we always believed in, hey, let's create commercial products that can get out in the marketplace for 1 and 2 years, like the leaf blower. Drones, both for the Department of Defense and for civil applications, in the 3 to 4 years. And that builds the revenue foundation for a solid company that can also do the long-term efforts like ubiquitous air taxis that are so compact, so quiet, so efficient that they can take off and land anywhere. I mean, that's the vibrant 20 to 30 year dream where our technology is going to be able to leapfrog and make that available sooner. I mean, it is amazing. Just think back 10 years ago, I mean, that was like pre-Uber, pre-self-driving cars. And, 10 years ago, you would have said, oh, you're crazy if you think people are going to get into self-driving cars and that's going to be a reality. Well, I'm telling you now that in another 10 plus years, you're going to be getting into a small 1 to 2 place autonomous aircraft that, again, is the size of a car with a wing attached as well. And it is going to be so quiet and be able to be flying around at 150 miles per hour by itself so safely with highly redundant propulsion systems that it's going to give you a mobility reach that you can't even imagine, where you can be wherever you want in the entire state and be incredibly productive. I know it sounds like a fairy tale, but it is literally becoming true with our technology.
I see it. I think if history is any kind of indicator of things that why we continue to be surprised by these things, you just got to look and kind of see. Well, give me like I definitely have a technical thing in the back of my brain, but I'll get to it. Like from Sue out in Detroit, who might just be like, well, give me like a day in the life use case. Like, why would I care as somebody who's maybe, in this, why would I care to get to somewhere in an autonomous vehicle? What's an application that someone might use for a very real world problem when they're trying to solve?
There's a bunch, like seeing your family, going to school.
Yeah, and I mean, just like with family, I mean, I don't know about your family. My family is spread out, right? It used to be your family stayed geographically close to each other.
Yeah.
But now it's like they're hundreds of miles away, and the opportunity to stay connected to them. Sure, you can do a chat with them, but it's nothing like having a personal, an in-person visit with them. And I mean, if it's hundreds of miles away, that's a real blocker. When that can turn into a 30-minute equivalent car ride, then there's this opportunity to stay much more connected.
And if you look at history, like our lives are defined by the modes of transportation available to us, right? So in the 1800s, it's like horses and buggies. In the 1900s, we got cars. And now we've got traffic. And so I think the 21st century is starting to be defined by all these new modes of transportation. And we're seeing autonomous cars, but there's limits to the mobility bandwidth on the ground. And so, you're saying, what is the use case? The use case is any kind of transportation that defines your daily life. When you can fly 100 miles in 20 minutes, you now can live in a whole lot more places. You can access a whole lot more opportunities. You can, get the right healthcare that you need. You can go, hiking and come back in a day and not feel like you've got to spend a whole trip. And when you can do that affordably, that now starts to really change things. It just changes the fabric of your everyday life.
And again, with a big picture, there's this opportunity, instead of being constrained to very limited geographic spaces, which is what big cities are, right? A lot of people live there because there's great opportunity. But what if you could access those opportunities but not have to live in the big city? Like, I'll give you an example. When I moved to Tennessee for us to start Whisper Aero, I did a crazy thing. I sold the condo that I had in downtown San Francisco, and for the exact same amount of money, bought a 20-acre, 40,000 square foot resort on a lake. And it's like, I could have had 1,200 square feet in San Francisco, or 20 acres and 40,000 square feet on a lake in a gorgeous place.
Yeah.
It is giving people that choice to live, work, play, do what they want, and have a mobility reach that enables them to have the best access for what they want to do.
From a the science question that I have in my mind that y'all might be able to help me with. You use the words efficient and you use the words redundant. How would start with the efficient side first? Why is that an important, like how should I conceptualize the importance of efficiency and why does it matter?
Efficiency typically translates to how much things cost too. So if you're inefficient, like general aviation aircraft today, small aircraft that you'd fly around, they're grossly inefficient. Aerodynamically, from the propulsion wise, so general aviation aircraft, they cost quite a bit of money to move around.
Yeah.
As soon as you go to an electric-based solution instead of hydrocarbon, the amount of energy that you use decreases by about an order of magnitude, because the aerodynamic efficiency compared to helicopters is 3 to 4 times more efficient. The powertrain efficiency compared to a piston engine is again 3 to 4 times efficient. The overall efficiency is the multiplication of those two, so about 10 to 12 times more efficient. So that goes directly to operating costs, how much energy you're using. So if you want to go somewhere, it's a lot of it comes down to how much is that energy costing you to do that trip.
Not only is it moving efficiently, actually in the way that it's operating, but also to the end consumer, it's actually just a much more efficient way to travel than buying your own airplane and driving a Cessna.
They're paying for the energy.
Yeah.
They're paying for, so if you're using less energy for that trip or you're using less energy for that good, it doesn't matter. That's your efficiency. The efficiency benefit is the cost savings.
Yeah.
And look, we should always strive to be more efficient, right? I mean, if you look at the first cars in the early 1900s, just pigs in terms of
2 to 3 miles a
consumption.
gallon.
Yeah. And it's like we kept doing better and better, and it's just like, look, at some point you gotta, whatever your politics are, you gotta realize that the world has an energy budget, right? We can't just keep pulling up oil for the next 200 years and expecting that to be the solution. So we've got to find ways to have sustainable energy solutions that require efficiency. Unless we want to cut back and we want to travel less and we want to have, less services. But to me, it's the challenge in life is how do we make everyone's life better and make sure that for the following generations, they're set up for success.
And the redundant side. It seems like that's a term you use almost for safety as well and for certainty or for peace of mind. How do you think about that, or how should I be thinking about that?
Well, it's twofold. So the cool thing about our tech is, we can be over 90% efficient at the fan level, whether you're, a 4-inch fan or whether you're a 4-foot fan. And so when you have, that equivalence in efficiency, you basically have what we call scale independent thrust. We can, no matter, if you're this small or this large, if you have the same efficiency, you might as well have a lot more redundant, smaller fans. So that way, if you lose one fan, the net hit to the overall system is much, much smaller, right? If you lose 2, you lose 1 fan. If you have 2 fans and you lose 1 fan, okay, well, you just lost 50%. But if you've got 20 of these fans and you lose 1, well, you have 19 out of 20 remaining. You're still good. You can stay aloft. You can do it. You can even shut down another one. You're still 90% there. So that redundancy adds to the safety, and the inherent ability to go small and still go redundant, but still have the same efficiency, also adds to the efficiency. And then there's these cool integration benefits. When you have these smaller fans and you're able to leverage cool things like blowing air over the top of a wing, that gets you more lift, and you can use that lift to have a smaller aircraft, to have better ride quality, to get a much better trip, and then again, get to that cost savings.
Yeah, I think for folks who maybe can't see it, if you look at any of the photos that are up and stuff there, I'll describe it the best way that I can, maybe in layman's terms. If you look at kind of a traditional way of thinking of an aircraft, you have a wing, 1, maybe 2 big engines on it, and that's about it. Where these, you kind of see the engine and the wing, or is it turbine or an engine? How should I call it?
You can call them electric engine. You can call them thrusters.
Thrusters. It's like integrated part of the design, and it is strung out across the entire length of the wing, which if you think about it, even if something goes wrong with one of them, you're saying you have plenty other things that are going to keep you aloft and keep you going.
That's right.
As opposed to that one engine getting hit, now you only got one to go on.
Yeah, and that's why, I mean, we broke 100-year-old truth that bigger is better. That's why, as you said, aircraft have 1 or 2 engines, because bigger engines are more efficient, they're more economical. That's been the truth for 100 years, and why aircraft look the way they do. With ours, bigger is not better. Smaller is better. Smaller provides lower cost and provides simpler systems and lets you integrate in this redundant manner to achieve much higher safety.
And economies of scale.
Yeah.
Yeah, for manufacturing production, we can hit about 1/4 of the cost for what aviation propulsion does today in terms of dollars per pound of thrust. Because we can use different processes with smaller propulsors than with great big ones that have highly stressed components. And even more, so as you look at our aircraft, we can get away from single part criticality. If you look at a helicopter or any eVTOL today, they have lots of single parts that are critical. That means if one part breaks, the aircraft comes down. Because of the way we're able to incorporate redundancy and distribution, we eliminate single part criticality. And that means the parts are far less expensive, they don't need frequent inspections, and overall it's a much safer solution.
Mm-hmm.
Makes a ton of sense. Yeah, I think it kind of leads me to something when y'all were talking earlier about kind of going back to the human side of all this. I mean, it's all human, but really just kind of the heart of it, I should say. You saying that reminds me of something I thought earlier in this combo, which was, how do you... This is a very philosophical question, so please forgive me. But it's more like, why do you think we go so long before someone decides that maybe we ought to think of it differently? What is that in human nature that makes us go for? Is it just comfort or investment, or kind of what is that, do you think?
It requires a mental change of perspective. Like, I'll give you another example. We're just with what's going on in Ukraine. I mean, militaries have their mindset, their perspective. And they thought, hey, these $100 million fighters and bombers are how you do aerial combat and win wars. Ukraine, it's completely changed. Now, instead of having one fighter or one bomber, you have 1,000 drones that come in. And so there is this is not just about military or other things. I'm going to get really philosophical on you.
Let's go.
This is about how the world is discovering distribution has enormous consequences and potential that centralization doesn't have. And for the last 100 years of industrialization, it's been centralize, centralize, centralize. Whether it's making Doritos at a single factory so you can make them really cheap, but guess what? If that one factory goes down,
no more Doritos.
No more Doritos, yeah. So, and if you think about this really philosophically, what does nature do to be as robust and survivable and beautiful? It always distributes. A tree doesn't have 1 leaf or 2 leaf. It has about 10,000 leaves. And across all of nature, you can see distribution has been a key to success in thriving. And I think the world is about to go through a fundamental shift across all parts of society, where instead of centralizing, again, like with aircraft, having centralized 1 or 2 engines, now we have technologies that let us distribute and have really amazing new capabilities that you can't get with centralization.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Additive printing is another example.
That's another one. Well, you see this just happening in a bunch of different industries, right? Like crypto, GPUs versus CPUs. Distribution is a good thing. The other piece of this, though, which makes Whisper possible now, when it wasn't even possible like 10 years ago, is this advancement in all these other fields. Like the advances that now we have in additive manufacturing, these advances in other forms of manufacturing, advances in design tools, computational design, All of these were necessary ingredients in order to allow Whisper to design these particular innovations, these quieter, more efficient, compact jets. And that's part of it. We as humans continue to make all of this progress in these isolated vectors, but innovation happens at the intersection of all these disparate disciplines. And so after a while, we make progress in all these different fields, and it takes, a team to bring that all back together and assess how has the world all shifted all at once, and what can we now build given everything that's changed. So that's what we want to do. We're trying to take advantage of all of these different advances and be able to, build a 21st century solution so that we can break the 100-year-old truths.
Yeah. Timing, I think, in life is everything, right? And so being also able to do that. How do you think about, there's a fact you gave me last time, Ian, it's burned in my mind about, you also think about these, is it 5,000 underutilized regional airports across the country that also are just, they're not also being leveraged, and now you have this cross-section of the automotive thing has really congested up the world.
Yep.
And so you got this infrastructure that already exists too. That's got to be a big part of it too, right?
Yeah, in Tennessee, there's 77 small airports that are barely being used.
77 in the state?
Just
in
in
the state?
In the state.
Wow.
5,000 across the United States. And the United States has a huge advantage here that other countries don't, where they've already paid for this huge distributed aviation infrastructure capability. But if you look how aviation services are provided today, 70 to 80% of the trips done on airplanes are done out of 30 airports, big hub airports. So again, aviation has gone to centralization.
Yeah.
And guess what? If there's one bad weather storm in Newark, that's impacting all the operations across all of United. So
fascinating.
This ability to leverage these 5,000 small airports through distributed aviation services has enormous potential. And it's not like, oh, we've got to build all these airports. They're literally already here. We just have to develop these technologies into integrated aircraft solutions that can especially have the economics that let everyone take advantage of this increased mobility.
It's almost the opposite problem that EV cars had, where you built the technology, but then you're like, oh, these charging hubs, we didn't have that infrastructure. Well, in this case, it's like, no, that actually already exists.
Yeah, and I mean, the problem with cars are, then we're like ants, right? You're on these confined trails, and you build another lane, and you just have more ants traveling through it. But as soon as you get above the 2D, and take advantage of that third dimension, instead of it being pathway dependent, you eliminate that pathway dependency, and then all you're connected with is nodes. That's kind of like the internet in terms of productivity, because that way you're pathway independent. You can go from one node to 4,999 other nodes in terms of operating, and that number of pathways is geometrically, expanded tremendously from having to go along a single path.
When y'all think about the future, you say 10 years, when do you think the adoption, what's your gut say? Y'all have done this for quite some time, that in addition to, with the technology being there and the infrastructure set, do you think it'll take even longer for that to fall down? Do you think it'll take even longer for folks to adopt, or do you think they'll kind of get it quickly?
So I'm going to go back to the automobile age. I've read a lot of books on the similarities between automobiles replacing horse and buggy and where we are today.
Yeah.
And technologies are definitely moving faster now than in the early 1900s. But for automobiles really to hit mass market, tens of millions of cars, you literally had to have one generation die off who were not believers. They didn't grow up with that technology set. So they had to die off before the next generation came, who thought, of course, I'm not going to ride a horse. I'm going to get in this car. and essentially have trusted relationships with these machines. So I personally think it'll be much faster than that 30-year arc that happened with automobiles.
Yeah.
Just because humans are getting to this state where they can embrace change at a faster pace, and you don't need a generational die-off. But what do you think?
No, I mean, I think maybe you wouldn't frame it as generational die-off, but I think there's
I like it though.
there's a lead lag involved. And like, I think the generation that's going to fly every day is already primed for that.
Yeah.
Especially in autonomous air taxis.
Yeah.
Like you look at Gen Z. Gen Z, by the numbers, is driving less. Less of them have driver's licenses. Many in San Francisco, like they as kids were in Ubers and now are using Waymos. Those are the same kinds of people that will be ready to accept and adopt these electric air taxis when they're ready. And we talked about all of these, taking these parallel advances and then starting to combine them. Well, you've got folks used to ride sharing, you've got these advances in autonomous technologies, and now you have these advances in electrified aviation, and the infrastructure's there. So now we're nearing that point where this comes together, and the mindset's already there for people that are using these techs.
But we don't want to give any excuses as inhibitors. Like in the early days of automobiles, they called them devil wagons. I mean, there was a huge amount of people who just wanted nothing to do with them. They were scaring the horses. So this is part of this being considerate as well as compelling, where we don't provide any excuses for this change to happen, because they are so quiet. They're so much safer.
And affordable.
And affordable. So part of it is just a responsibility on us as we create these transformative new products to be responsible and not let those naysayers have valid excuses for why this shouldn't change.
Yeah, it's being mindful. It's kind of like you need to observe folks stubbing their toe several times before with different innovation to also go, okay, how do we also make sure that we are bringing folks along and not having that excuse? Yeah, it's something that you talk about, the end-to-end thinking on this. It's not just like go, because that is how an engineer would approach it. Like just build the thing, people will follow because it's definitively better. And it's like, well, there's a whole lot of other things, emotion and stuff around it too.
Well, and this is one of the reasons why Ian and I get along. We have very similar system think, where we grew up in our careers as essentially system of system designers. An aircraft is a really complicated set of systems that are coming together in a highly integrated fashion, more so than any other machine that I can think of.
There's more trade-offs in an aircraft
than
any other.
Yeah. Well, and the consequences are like if you get a flat tire, you just kind of
could be severe or hazardous.
Yeah. Let's man, I could go down this rabbit hole for quite a while, but I think the other part that when I think of Whisper Aero, when I first met y'all some time back, it's always stayed on my mind was, please take this as a big compliment, but is how human y'all are in the process. I meet your teammates all the time, and not all the time, but when I'm out here, they flock and they say hello, and it's kind of the antithesis of what you would think this kind of company would be like. I think the vision might be Silicon Valley, high rise, ping pong with a living wall, that nobody's allowed to touch, like that whole thing. Nothing wrong with that. That served a purpose. When you come here, if I didn't know y'all built this technology, I'd almost be like, they do agriculture or something here? Like I wouldn't, you just feel like the people are just homey. I guess my bold question is that by accident, or what is that part of the secret sauce that makes all this work?
Well, personally, I love small town life. So that's just kind of ingrained in me, and that's how small towns, it's different than big city way of doing things, where it is so much more personal and so much friendlier and so much more polite. That's why I'm hoping our technology enables people to experience more of that. And in so many ways, the United States seems to be polarizing between big city thinking and country thinking and separating those ideals and perspectives. To me, the best thing that could happen is we have such great mobility options that everybody mixes it up more, because it's you realize, I think more here in small town life, everybody has a lot of similarities, and there isn't really that much that's dividing us in our perspectives, and we can all get along. And in Whisper's case, I mean, we do really feel like a big family. So hopefully, the way we're behaving is indicative of what the future could bring at a bigger scale.
And I think like there are structural things that we've done to intentionally make sure that the team that we build, are good humans, and also, share this vision of ours. The culture, right? The values that we cultivate, those become like really easy ways to see if someone, aligns with how we see the world and is able to work together with us in ways that can build these products. And, it doesn't matter how cool the tech is, like there's a person behind that, right? There's like someone who has to invest their blood, sweat, and tears to make that real. And I would much rather have someone that cares, that wants to think through all of it, that like is really thinking end to end about how this integrates into people's lives, and then is thinking about this in a positive way and wants to do this not just because they want this for themselves, but because they care about the team around them that's also invested their time and effort and believes so strongly in this product, succeeding and then having a life of its own in the world. So when you build methodically with those values, with a willingness and an intent to find people that care about those values and then care about the products as much as you do, then I think you're able to build an atmosphere where you just find good people.
They kind of attract other people, I'd imagine, too, right? It's a
little bit magnetic, yeah.
Yeah, it's magnetic and probably self-policing. I would imagine at some point, too, people become protective of a home that they feel proud of and they've built, right? And they're trying to make sure that continues forward.
Yeah, Steve Jobs famously said something like, A+ players want to work with A+ players. And I don't think that has to do with just someone's tech sense or someone's abilities, skills. Yeah. It has to do with their values and their culture. And you don't have to be some savant that doesn't know how to talk to people to do good work. Good work comes from lots of people looking to make a change. And innovation happens at this intersection of disparate disciplines. So you need lots of people that care really intensely about something, but are A+ in how they execute, and A+ in how they see the world and want to affect positive change.
Talking about commitment, a lot of what we do on this show is like our personal mission really is just to encourage that next generation, whatever that next generation means. Not really an age thing for us. It's more just like folks are at that point in life where they're realizing that maybe them taking the torch of that small plumbing company in America or starting that thing or more ownership of their current family, whatever it might be, just kind of celebrating what is in front of them, but maybe having the courage to kind of step forward and go do the thing. Really just boosting and inspiring them to do that by sharing, stories like y'all. I'm curious from y'all's seat, just even individually, I think the thing that I definitely don't have a specific appreciation, but being that I've been there before and built companies and done that as well and served, it's hard to explain the grit and commitment that it takes to will something into existence that doesn't organically want to be there. How do you think about, or what would you give folks as a word of encouragement as they're thinking about stepping into the arena? Because it is so daggone hard.
Yeah, but it's never been as possible as it is today. Like you've also seen the investment side, where I can tell, in my career, when I started in 1982, there was no such thing as an aviation startup, right? You either worked at NASA, Boeing, or Lockheed, or Northrop. It was big aerospace. And it is amazing over the last 10 to 15 years how venture capital has come in and completely changed aerospace. Not just on aviation, But in rocketry, on satellites, you have startups doing all the cutting edge stuff now, and the big aerospace not even able to keep up. So, and this is not just true in aviation. So, venture capital and investment is thriving, in my opinion, in a way where it can impact all sorts of new startups. And we live in a wonderful time of opportunity, but also in a time of tremendous changes. And they're just really beginning when you start to think about AI and some of the other big changes that are going to be coming. And what people have to understand, it's a time of opportunity as well as a time of change. And if you're willing to change, there's a lot of investment to tap into to help you accomplish that change.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. There's a few pieces of advice. I mean, I think like there's a point where you have conviction and then you want to go do it, and then you wonder, like, is this the right time? Mm-hmm. So for those folks, I think my advice is, there's never really a right time, and there's never really a better time. You just kind of have to go do it once you have conviction. But to get to that point of conviction, I think you have to have, cut your teeth. You have to have like built up that experience. And so being uncomfortable and seeing a lot of, things and putting yourself into these different projects that will stretch you, that will test you, that's a good thing. If you feel like you're in it for the glory and for something easy, then you're not ready yet. Mm. But if you're fed up with maybe your corporate America job, and you've had a taste of doing something better, the resources are out there, and it doesn't get easier. They're as close as they've ever been, so you just got to go try it.
But I think one thing you said there in particular, like the willingness to be uncomfortable. I worked with so many great people at NASA, and I've tried to recruit them and pull them in and tell them, hey, we're living in a whole new Wright brothers age now. If you want to be part of great things, go to a startup. Maybe not our startup, but go to a startup, because the pace at NASA is dreadfully slow. It's same at Boeing or the other big companies. The startup world just moves so fast and is making such tremendous improvements and changes. But I can tell you the answer that I get back from them is, I'm comfortable. And it's like, if that's where you are in life and that's what you want to do, that's great. But I mean, for those who have that aspiration, I want to change the world. I want to make it better. I want to be a doer and a builder. It's like, you got to be willing to be uncomfortable. That's like the first thing you got to decide.
Yeah. There's also like an element of, if you want to change the world, you also have to be willing to kind of like reinvent yourself multiple times. I think that's part of like being a founder. Like you're going to wear a lot of hats. Your role is going to change a whole bunch. And so if you're ready to go be a founder yourself, you should also be ready to embrace a lot of change. And oftentimes they are. Yeah. That is the thing that like pushes them over the edge.
Well, and one of the things I'm proud of is I see Ian and I mentoring a bunch of younger people who want to do their own startups in the future. And that excites me, that we are literally helping them to be successful with their startups someday.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the part that sometimes it's hard to articulate, is that there are a lot of folks that once you do step in the arena, there are, may not be everybody in the audience, but there's definitely a group in the dugout that's going to cheer you on and they want to help you, because they've been there, they understand the pain. I think the part that I see, and I'm saying this really out of respect of you all, because this is a big arena to step into with a lot of lions coming at you. I do think that even for the person trying to step into the arena, do something small, I often hear the same exact thing you mentioned, Mark, which is like, and Ian, it's like a combination of maybe I'll wait till the water's a little bit warmer, or I'll wait till it gets a little bit more like I am a little more comfortable, or I can replace my income, whatever the versions of that are. And there's a part of me that always wants to tell them, like, I definitely have a respect. There's life stuff that happens and whatever, so I definitely don't want to disparage that. But there's a part of me that says, like, the magic is in the grit, the grind, and the discomfort. There's a person that you don't even know exists that can come out of that fire. But if you wait for it to get too it's just you're not going to get that version. You're not going to get to see it, and it's such a shame not to see that human. It will be scarred and torn and battered, but it'll be this human that you're very proud to look at in the mirror versus this version that, I don't know, maybe you just never get a chance to look in the mirror. Do you have was there a moment for y'all that existed with that? It probably sounded very early. Like, that sounded like maybe that's more in y'all's DNA, but do you have a moment, do you remember, where that decision finally just went, all right, I'm doing this thing? Was it before Whisper?
There's never been like a single moment, but I love what you said there, because it resonates with me. I feel it. It's like, I didn't know 5 years ago that I could really do a startup.
Yeah.
And it's just like going through it and looking back, it's like, absolutely, heck yeah, but it's like you got to learn a lot of things along the way. And I can't even imagine if I went through life not doing a startup, oh man, I would have missed out on so much of myself.
Yeah.
It would have been just a shame.
Yeah, I think for me, like, in college, I really wanted to work on a company. My dad had his own business when we were growing up, and so that was something I wanted to strive for. And I tried to do a startup in college, and that didn't work out. That like floundered pretty fast. And so then I told myself, okay, I'm gonna learn a whole lot more. I'm gonna go spend some time in industry, and then maybe sometime in my mid-30s, like, that would be a good time. And then, learned a bunch at Northrop. That was big company culture. Went to Uber, then kind of like learned how fast startups can really operate, especially the startup within the startup.
Yeah.
And then, I think we told ourselves in 2018, 2019, like, when Elevate's more mature, then that will be the right time. And then COVID hit. And
it became the right time.
And then it became the right time. Yeah, there wasn't a right time.
It
just, the time is when you're ready. And you just kind of have to.
You're never going to feel ready.
You're never going to feel ready, but you just got to do it.
Jump in.
You just got to do it. And there's no, like, I don't think there's luck involved. I don't think there's perfect timing. Gary Tan, I think he said, great founders make their own luck. So, you seize the opportunities around you. There's not going to be a great time. You can't time a fundraise. You can't time. I mean, maybe you can. Maybe there's some really great founders that can, but there's so many different things that can happen, like macroeconomic conditions, COVID, politics. So you do what's best with the hand that you're dealt,
but you got to be willing to fail too. And a lot of people are they don't want to feel failure. You gotta embrace it. That's one of the solutions, and be willing to fail fast so that you can
pick yourself back up.
Yeah, I mean, one of our investors is a serial entrepreneur, and he's shared many lessons with us where his first company was building foosball machines when he was in college.
Interesting.
And then he did the next one, and then on the seventh one, then he got it right, and now he's a multi-billionaire just by letting it fail and say, okay, I learned a lot on that one. Let's do the next one. I've got more ideas.
Yeah.
It's not over.
Yeah, that's kind of like the thing that I think is hard to articulate, and I appreciate you both sharing that, because if you keep doing what you're doing and you don't decide to maybe take the leap, you almost will never know. That's the part, like, you actually don't know what you're missing because you never will see it.
What could have been?
And you, in a weird way, you may never be really bothered by it. Some of us might, but a lot of folks won't. And I think that's always the hard part I try to articulate to the right folks, which is once you see it, though, you can't unsee it, but you have to, like, go make that step. And then it's a world that's hard to climb out of, like, having that level of agency, having that level of just, like, man, there's just that raw build, like you just get to feel it, touch it, see it, smell it every day.
Mm-hmm.
And even if it hurts, it's like a good hurt.
Well, I think the easiest way to know whether you want to do it or not is to like actually just work at a startup for a little bit. That's the closest you get to feeling the energy, feeling the chaos that you've got to wrestle with on a daily basis, and then recognize whether you're ready to be the person that has to take on a lot of that chaos, or whether you would just much rather, work in someone else's chaos and still, make big strides on an audacious mission. There's lots of people that, would be comfortable with that. There's lots of people that would be comfortable with corporate America. You have to understand where your risk spectrum like lies and where you fall on that, and how willing you are to like actually start the company, because it's hard. You really put in a lot more than you expect.
Yeah.
So I'm going to share something really personal. I've never shared this before, and that is at an early age, I had a pretty intense fear of failure, and I could have let that rule my life, but instead, I purposely, every time I'd feel that, I'd say, I cannot let this win, and I'd push myself to do that thing. And actually, it was funny, watching one of the Marvel movies, Doctor Strange, there's a line in there where your life, and this was told to Doctor Strange, your life has been driven by a fear of failure. And it's just like, what a shame that would be if anyone in their life, was limited by just being fearful of failing. It's just like, break out of that, push past it.
It's such a human trait, but I do think if you can change the narrative, you end up discovering some really beautiful parts about yourself and others that you didn't realize. Mm-hmm. Man, Jens, I got two more things on my brain. Y'all have been so gracious with your time. One of them just being, what are the things that I guess you can talk about? I know there's a lot of TS stuff here. It reminds me of my days in the military. You had to leave your phone in places and you couldn't do things, but for the right reasons. What are the things right now, maybe in the near future, coming up with Whisper that is exciting? Things that you want people to be on the lookout for?
Well, there's two parts to this, right? There's the air management side and the air mobility side. So on the air mobility side, we recently announced some work with the Air Force focused on collaborative logistics aircraft. For a long time, you're familiar with these sorts of missions. For a long time, we've used C-130s and these much larger aircraft to move cargoes and pallets to places that need them most. But in this world with newer technologies, it makes sense to distribute, right? You want to distribute logistics. You want to be able to get the right sized payloads to the right locations at the right time. And you don't necessarily have, for certain conflicts, the ability to wait for, your operations folks and your pilot and your crew to be rested. And, when duty calls, duty calls. And when you have autonomy and the ability to fly these more distributed, more reliable, lower cost assets, why shouldn't you? So we're embarking on this effort in the next 4 years to prove that out, to prove that you can actually get to these more distributed, collaborative logistics aircraft that, whether you're a Group 3, Group 4, or Group 5 drone, be able to move these smaller size payloads in a coordinated fashion autonomously. And all of that's powered with our propulsion system. Given that with the same 80-pound thrust fan, you can actually have multiples of them to propel that same Group 3, Group 4, Group 5 drone. Doesn't matter what size, you just use more of those thrusters to propel that larger vehicle through the air. So that's the really exciting thing on the air mobility side.
Yeah, it's something I wish we had 15 years ago, man. There's so many times we were waiting in the middle of the mountains, waiting on a resupply, and pilot rest or in another mission couldn't make it. We had to stay put and survive for a while until we get a resupply. That's awesome.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's a thing it's just needed, and logistics wins wars
always.
So that's pretty core on the mobility side. On the air management side, we've started thinking through, how can we actually put this tech in the hands of consumers and actually make a difference in neighborhoods? And so behind us, you see the leaf blower. People have been asking us for a while, like, when's the leaf blower coming out? When's the leaf blower coming out? We finally have a path to making the leaf blower real. And we've realized that to do that, it makes sense to actually, give it its own brand, give it the right space, tone, what's called tone, space, tone, character for the leaf blower to live and for people to actually resonate with the message that we're providing them. A lot of people won't actually know the difference or want to know all the complexities involved with our aerospace tech. They just want to make a difference in their neighborhoods, and they want to be able to sleep soundly on weekends. So we are now making that real. We've got a whole team devoted to making the leaf blower and that brand tone a reality. And that'll be the first product out of that brand, but it'll grow over time and encompass many more aspects of people's daily lives.
Man, it's awesome. It's like the full spectrum on what y'all do. It's like everything from, I mean, that's also what's just neat about it. I think it takes me back to being this 5-year-old kid. I still remember having this F-15 little model that my dad gave me and just kind of fly. Like just the idea that you can have something that has the horsepower and technology and all the brain power behind it in your hand to do your daily chore, as well as seeing into the future and being able to have that be the way that the world changes and moves around this earth is pretty rad, man. It's awesome.
That's just the start. That's just the beginning, right? Like Whisper's a propulsion company, so we want to have this portfolio of propulsion products and then reimagine all of these new contexts to place that in to make a difference in hand dryers and server cooling and HVAC systems. And we're going to find the best ways to go do that, whether that means, building a demonstrator ourselves, whether that means standing up a contract manufacturing line, whether that means licensing the tech to someone like Stanley Black & Decker for a whole myriad of air-moving products. We want to get the product into the hands of people who need it most and make a difference in the world. And that doesn't necessarily mean that we, Whisper, are building the end-to-end product. Propulsion is the core, and we'll empower people with that tech in multiple different ways.
And the last one is, I think about, I'm stoked to see all this stuff getting in. I mean, you guys are already putting it out there. I'm actually stoked when you all ask me back, hopefully like 8-10 years from now, and I get to like see all that. We're
10 years is a long time.
Man, what's going to be, it's going to come around. And we're going to probably be doing this interview in one of y'all's jets, moving across. But I do think that the other thing that's really cool is as we drove in this town, I think the one thing that I don't want to, we kind of talked about it, but I don't want it to be missed is y'all doing something neat. Like you didn't pick a big hub to put this in, Sure, you got some footprint in Nashville because of the things you have to be doing out that way. Makes sense. But y'all really are a shining example of like how innovative companies can bring life into a town that might have been, I don't want to say forgotten, but just might have been just kind of seen as another highway town that maybe is kind of wearing out. Can you just share, to the extent that makes sense, like what are the things that make you proud about being headquartered in a town like Crossville, where we're going to be hanging out with your team, afterwards here at one of the local pubs and enjoy that, enjoy that owner and what they've built. But I'm just curious, like what are the things that get you excited also about being able to bring life back into these maybe soon to be forgotten towns?
So here in Crossville, one of the challenges that the city has faced is the young people move away, right, to go to university, to get great jobs. So the demographic is very much an aging demographic, and it's the town has been losing vitality, and any city leader, any person will tell you that's true. So what I love is that we're changing that. We're bringing a lot of great jobs, high-paying jobs, into this small town. We've hired a lot of locals so that they can stay here and stay in the place where they grew up. So I think we're just bringing a whole new level of vitality to the community, and we're very active in it. I personally, am on the Sports Authority Committee, where we're getting a new $40 million YMCA being built downtown. and very active in the rebuilding of the downtown area, so that it can be beautified and become more vibrant and be even more attractive to young people wanting to hang out down there, and making it an even stronger community. So I believe in small town America. I love small town America. I feel really privileged that we're headquartered here in Crossville, and the community has been equally supportive to us. And we see a vibrant relationship between us and the community, and we're going to keep doing that.
Well, I think on top of that too, there's just a respect for the history and the legacy of this town. This building, before Whisper was ever around or conceived, was the Trade-A-Plane building, right? Trade-A-Plane started World War II, was around for a very long time for people to literally trade or sell their planes.
Yeah, if you were going to buy a new airplane, you'd open up the Trade-A-Plane magazine.
Yeah.
And you'd come, that magazine would come here. The printing presses were right over there. They would intake the paper over there. When we cleaned and set up the test facility, we scrubbed the floor for days because there was just dried ink all over the place. And so we have the privilege to actually work here in the same storied building and continue that aviation legacy. And maybe it's not with paper, it's with engines, but cool. We get
they would say that's a great way to embody the legacy.
Yeah, we get to bring that forward, and we get to continue to bring in talent that's local, and still bring in that vitality, reinvigorate it, maybe with some newer perspectives.
But Trade-A-Plane was the biggest employer in Crossville. And then, it's kind of a cool parallel. Then technology came along, the internet, that displaced the entire company. The entire company went away. So now we have the reverse, where now technology is coming in to vitalize instead of displace. And so we're coming full circle, where technology is now enabling Whisper to become one of the largest employers in town.
It's amazing. It's like a kind of a nod back to an early example you both gave about the way nature is. It does. It's like even after a burn, it does revitalize new grass and new vegetation, and it'll grow back again. Gents, really honored to be here. I'm stoked. I know we're going to be hanging out also and doing kind of a walking tour and kind of a little bit of the insides of the things that we can see, but always stoked when I get to come down here to Tennessee. One, I feel like Texas and Tennessee are cousins. And also just I think that your people here just make it really easy to be around. So y'all are reasons why I think we continue to be proud Americans and what we're building in this country, and not just for ourselves, but for the rest of the world. So thanks for all you do and your team does, and thanks for letting us be able to chat with you here for a little bit.
This has been an amazing conversation. So many pearls of wisdom between you guys. So thank you for coming.
Yeah. Thanks again for swinging by and deciding to come back, and hopefully it won't be 8 to 12 years. Or
Yeah, no, I mean, you tell me whenever you want me to come back, I'll come
that
back.
Whisper jet.
Oh, please,
and do that
man,
next interview.
Yeah, whenever that time comes, just count me in.
Yeah.
I'll sign whatever waiver you need.
Swing by and pack a parachute too.
Yeah, yeah. Luckily, that's my old background, man. So I know. I have no doubt though I'll be making it safely wherever I'm going. So
right on.
Thank you, gents.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the American Operator Podcast, where we celebrate the backbone of America, small business owners and operators like you. If you've enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe so you'll never miss out on more of these stories and insights from people who keep our community strong. Until next time, keep building, keep operating, and keep America moving forward.